The New York Mets give multiple updates. This has serious implications. Last batch of trade rumors underway before the 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time trade deadline tonight, and fans are curious if the now splashy David Stearns is going to make another move to bolster up this roster before the World Series, hopefully to go win the World Series here in 2025, or is he content and believes the roster at hand can go win a championship? Well, stay tuned only on Mets Digest to find out the answer. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. We're going to talk the trade deadline, all of these rumors, but first we got to talk about some subscribers, and that being the fact that 69.9% of you that watch these videos aren't one. So please do me a favor, do us a favor here at Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the Amazins. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. And a quick disclaimer, it is 1:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at the time that I'm recording this video. There's going to be plenty, and I mean plenty, of rumors and talks going on over the next 5 hours. If you want to stay tuned about that, go on social media, X, Twitter, MLB Network, they all got you covered. But this is a pre-recorded video at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So these are all the updates that we have as of now. If something does actually happen and David Stearns pulls the trigger, Adam and I got you covered only here on Mets Digest for that move. If not, if there is not a video there to bridge the gap, I will be giving you my 2 cents and my reaction to the trade deadline later tonight after 6 p.m. after the deadline is over. So stay tuned for all that only here on Mets Digest. And with that, let's go ahead and dive right into the last batch of updates that we have right now for the trade deadline. Andy Martino of SNY talked last night and said that nothing is hot as of that night. He said, quote, Mets were close to finalizing both reliever deals for much of today. Those reliever deals being, of course, Tyler Rogers and Ryan Helsley. Nothing else is close at the moment. Now, interesting note is that Rogers deal came in a little bit before 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the Helsley deal at about 7:15, meaning there were a lot of talks and hot talks the entire day. Those deals were hot for the entirety of yesterday on Wednesday, and it took the entire deal to finally finalize a deal. Probably just a lot of bickering back and forth between both teams. Hey, we want your number 7 prospect. And the Mets say, no, we're going to give you the 8th, or we're going to give you the 9th, and then they're compromising in the middle. That's basically negotiation. That's exactly what it was, and it took all day yesterday. So since nothing is hot at the moment as of last night, it's going to be a long shot to see something happen today, at least in my opinion. As for Martino on position players, the only thing that seemed to have much traction earlier today were talks for Luis Robert Jr. Mark Vientos and Luis Angel Acuna were discussed, but that is not hot at this moment. Now, since those did have some discussions and the discussions seemed hot enough, and it's been a big rumor throughout the entire week and for a long time, even before this week, I could see a deal for Luis Robert happening, as opposed as I am against it and how much I do not want that deal to happen. But anyway, and by this moment, he means this moment. Last night is a long time away when you talk trade deadline. Reports don't have a long shelf life at this point. I have a funny story to prove that. On MLB Network, I was watching it before I started filming this video, and there was a update from an insider about the Detroit Tigers. Apparently, they wanted David Bednar, and this insider, who had sources, thought that the Tigers were going to go out and get Bednar. Not even 15 seconds later, I get a notification on my phone that Kyle Finnegan was going to the Tigers, and they got their closer. They got their stud in Finnegan as opposed to Bednar. So that just goes to the point of how these reports have zero shelf life whatsoever. One thing can happen, and 15 seconds later, an entire new deal can be created and can be finalized. So that is what last night was all about. Today is now what's important. So what about it? What do we know? Well, these are the following things that we know. New York is trying to trade Paul Blackburn before the deadline at 6 p.m. tonight. Go ahead and check out my last Mets Give Multiple Updates video from yesterday if you want to hear a little bit more about that. The Mets' number 17 prospect was scratched from the Port St. Lucie lineup before their game last night, which is big because if the Mets do want to make a deal, especially on the pitching side with a hot market and a very slim market, to be honest, not a lot of starting pitchers, not a lot of relievers on the market, they're going to have to give up some good prospects, and number 17 is probably on the list. You're probably going to have to give up a top 30 prospect or two, and if it's a better guy, top 15 or multiple top 15s, top 10s, top 5s. So the number 17 prospect being scratched is definitely big because teams aren't going to want to get someone who's actively hurt, who is currently on the soon to be on the injured list or even scratched from the lineup. Additionally, Mets are in the market for a center fielder. We talked about this with Robert. That is the most likely deal. Most likely they'll go out and get Luis Robert, but we have an update on that, so I'll save that for a little bit and focus on the pitching side, and that being that the Mets are willing to call up a top pitching prospect if they don't add a starter at the trade deadline. So let's see, what is the deadline going to look like today, as we're going to turn it now to Anthony Tacomo of MLB.com. He said last night, "I'm told the Mets intend to remain active even after acquiring Ryan Helsley and Tyler Rogers for the bullpen. They're still pushing for a bat." That doesn't mean that they won't acquire a pitcher. They can go out and get another arm. They could go out and get another bat. Stearns is still going to be active and hopefully try and make that right deal if he believes that they need one, if they need a deal to go ahead and move forward and make that push to go win it all this year. So the Mets are still going to be hot at the deadline. They are still a team that wants to buy, as Buster Olney is now going to say a few things about the rotation, saying they are aggressively looking for rotation help. In fact, we have a new update on that front. Buster Olney, of course, from ESPN, and this one is from Mike Puma of the New York Post. He said, less than an hour ago of the time that I'm filming this video, Mets at this point view a starting pitcher addition as less likely than a bat, but not impossible. So, we've heard a lot about the bats. Let's turn it over to that side, as it's pretty unlikely that the Mets go out and get another pitcher. Bullpen is almost completely not happening. The Mets basically finalized their bullpen. We've talked about that. Go check out my videos about Tyler Rogers and Ryan Helsley, as well as Adams. We got plenty on that and how this bullpen is currently looking. They look pretty set on that front. They could possibly use another starter, so I wouldn't rule that out. But the bat, as you've heard from the experts, Puma, it's on your screen right now. A bat is more likely, so let's turn it over to that way. And we're going to turn it to Francis Romero of BBWAA, who talks the front runners and desired return package for Luis Robert. He says Luis Robert continues to draw interest on the market per sources. The White Sox are seeking an MLB guy, so that would be Luis Angel Acuna or Mark Vientos, like we heard from Andy Martino in all likelihood, and 2 prospects in return for the Cuban outfielder per industry sources. Mets, Phillies, and possibly the Padres are in the race. It's basically, what NL East team is he going to, or is he not getting traded? Is he going to the Mets? Is he going to the Phillies? Or is he staying in Chicago? Maybe on some unlikely outside chance he goes to the San Diego Padres. I've said this time and time again. You can hear this basically from every video that I talk about the trade deadline. No, do not go out and get Luis Robert. Even if you trade Luis Angel Acuna, he is still not worth it. You trade Acuna and 2 prospects that are in the top 30, I don't think it's worth it for a guy that's not even hitting 210 and is having a very, very bad season. I know, he hits well against lefties and he had a great pass. So what? I do not want him at all costs, especially if it costs you Mark Vientos. So with that, speaking of infielders, let's turn it over to another surprising report about the Houston Astros. Joel Sherman confirms that Houston has inquired on the availability of Jeff McNeil, Brett Baty, and Ronnie Mauricio. Now, this is interesting because this is a buying team talking about a trade with a fellow buying team. They have the same record, 62-47. Both teams are leading their respective divisions. Mets by half a game on the Phillies. And for Houston, they are 5 games up on both Seattle and Texas in the AL West right now. Very surprised by this, and I don't want anything to happen. I don't think that the Astros are going to give up a contending piece. Just like in this trade, the Mets should not be giving up a contending piece in McNeil, Baty, or Mauricio, as here are the stats. It is starting off with Jeff McNeil, who's having a career year, but we talked about this yesterday. The Mets are listening on talks about getting rid of him. Look at that OPS, basically an 800 OPS, above 350 OBP. He's having a really, really nice season with 9 homers, 32 RBIs in just 226 at-bats. He spent some time on the injured list, came back red hot. As for Brett Baty, he's another guy. He is young. He has been red hot of late. He's been great the past 30-plus days, just 25 years old. Why would you get rid of him to a contending team who can then go beat you in the World Series? They can go beat us in the playoffs. Ronnie Mauricio, same deal, 24 years old. He's been great of late. Average near 250, which for the Mets puts him up there in terms of contending. Not many guys are hitting that well. I mean, besides Starling Marte, I don't think there's a single guy on this team that's hitting above 265. 750 OPS is very serviceable, 6 homers, 9 RBIs, and Mauricio has raw talent. He's got a great arm and a lot of pop with that bat. No, do not get rid of McNeil, Baty, or Mauricio. In fact, Speaking of McNeil, per Mike Puma, he had a pretty funny reaction when he found out that he was rumored to possibly be moving, as we turn to the New York Post author who says, the trade deadline is fun. The Mets had just finished their game today, and Jeff McNeil was in the clubhouse showing teammates his phone with John Heyman reporting the team was acquiring Ryan Helsley. McNeil even double-checked to make sure it wasn't a fake Heyman account. McNeil wants to be here. It's obvious. He loves it here. Do not trade him. And speaking of the Helsley deal, Ryan Stanek is loving the addition of him in addition to Tyler Rogers. Again, per Puma, he said Ryan Stanek was very happy with the Tyler Rogers addition and then found out Ryan Helsley was on the way. I might be throwing in the fourth inning now, he said, marveling at the potential strength of the bullpen's back end and the bullpen overall. In fact, Brooks Raley even added to this comment saying, I might be the opener. So everyone is having fun on this team. This is a good roster right now. Do not trade any of the pieces right now. If you want to go out and get another guy like an arm, give away prospects. No MLB talent should be traded because this roster is legit. This bullpen has been solved. Again, I'm fine if you want to get a starting pitcher. Even if you want to get an outfielder, get the right guy, but don't give up MLB talent and don't get too aggressive on the prospect front. David Stearns has been splashy and aggressive enough at this trade deadline. I think he's done enough. If the right deal is there, go take it, but I would be perfectly fine if the Mets do not make a trade over the next 4 hours and 45 minutes. Breaking news as well as we wrap up this video, Harrison Bader is now going to the Philadelphia Phillies, so if the Mets get a bat, it will not be Bader, it'll likely be Robert, maybe an outside shot at Mullins. Again, if they want to pull off a severe blockbuster deal, I am all in to go get Steven Kwan, but other than that, they have to be careful in my eyes about who they get. Some starting pitching works, but I wouldn't give up too much for a Mitch Keller or an Edward Cabrera. I think the two guys that fit best in terms of going and making a deal is Steven Kwan. I know he's a blockbuster trade, and I know you have to give up a lot for him, but he has proven himself that he is really good, and he would fit really well in this lineup. And then I'm thinking Sonny Gray if you want to go back to the Cardinals and go out and get a starter. Other than that, I'd be cautious, but we'll see what David Stearns does. Again, if he pulls the trigger and makes a deal, Adam and I will bridge that gap between my reaction video and this one if something happens. But if not, I will see you guys later tonight for a reaction on the trade deadline from the New York Met perspective with me as your host. Thank you so much as always for watching. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you in this one with multiple trade rumor updates and trade deadline updates. More updates coming in terms of the Mets because the Mets have been playing baseball in this meantime. That's going to be coming out for you tomorrow. But for now, we're focusing on the trade deadline. Thank you so much as always for watching, and let's go Mets.